If you really love me, you'll let me do this. How many husbands have heard those words from their wives? That was exactly what my wife said to me during what was supposed to be a romantic dinner for our 5th anniversary. And just like that, my world began to crumble. How did we end up here? My stunning 29-year-old wife had just dropped a bombshell. She wanted to sleep with other men outside our marriage. She said it so bluntly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. To me, it was as clear as day. I'd planned an incredible evening at one of our favorite upscale restaurants, complete with white tablecloths and a decent wine list. I'd even splurged nearly $1,000 on a diamond necklace I knew she'd been eyeing for ages. Now, I felt like I had to get my money back. During the meal, I noticed she seemed on edge. Our usually easygoing conversation felt forced. She was distracted, her eyes darting around the room as if she was searching for something or someone. Normally, she looked me in the eye when we talked, but tonight she avoided my gaze, focusing on the table, her wine glass, anything but me. After we finished the main course and were enjoying another glass of wine, she finally brought up what she really wanted to discuss. "Honey, there's something that's been bothering me. It's been on my mind for a while, and I need to address it." I set my wine glass down, puzzled. What could this be about? Her voice dropped to that serious tone she used for important matters that I immediately wondered if she was going to talk about starting a family. We discussed it several times over the past 3 years, deciding to wait until we were more settled in our careers and had a bigger financial cushion. We were there now, and I was eager to expand our family. Was this what she wanted to discuss? I hoped so, but her lack of eye contact made me doubt it. If she was talking about babies, you'd expect her to be beaming with excitement, not avoiding my stare. She took a deep breath and said, "I want to do something I'm not sure you'll agree with, but it's been something I've thought about a lot. It's important to me." My wife, Emily, swallowed nervously and continued, "I need to explore my life outside of our relationship. I need some freedom to discover who I am, and I believe this will help me be a better wife for you." I was stunned. Confused, angry, hurt, all at once. "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, slamming my palms on the table and staring at her, my face reflecting my bewilderment. She avoided my gaze, replying, "I need to explore other relationships. I want your agreement first, so you don't get all upset and weird when I start." My blood pressure was skyrocketing, veins in my neck throbbing. "What kind of relationships are we talking about, Emily?" "Well, they could be with various people," she said casually. My confusion grew with every second as my breathing became ragged. "Could you be a bit more specific?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "I think I might want to see other men," she said. "What the hell are you talking about, Emily? You want to have an affair and need me to agree to it before you go sleep with other guys?" "Jesus Christ," I said, my voice rising and likely attracting the attention of other diners. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. There's no need for everyone to overhear this. It was clear she chose a public place to spring this news on me, probably hoping I wouldn't make a scene. She got me good. I felt sick to my stomach, wanting to vomit up that expensive dinner. The only thing I could think to ask was, why? "Why do you want to see other men, Emily?" "I need space to explore myself." "Explore yourself? What does that even mean? Are you saying you want to have sex with other men? Are you leaving me?" "No, I'm not leaving you. There are reasons I need to do this. I love you very much, and you are my soulmate. I want us to have a family and grow old together. But right now, I need to experience certain things I'm not feeling. I want your permission to explore those things. It will only be for a few months, and then I'll be yours again, Jake." I promise, this was pretty much the worst possible scenario I could imagine. My wife of 5 years just announced during our anniversary dinner that she wants to sleep with other men. She expects me to sit back, agree to this insanity, and then wait for her to come back when she's fulfilled, as if nothing ever happened. Apparently, she'll be a better wife for having done it. I was completely floored. I couldn't even process what was happening. My mind was blank, and I couldn't catch my breath. I stood up, carefully placed my napkin on the table, finished my wine in one gulp, set the glass down, and then walked out of the restaurant. "Honey, where are you going?" she called after me. "I don't know," I said. "But you should probably call a cab to get home." I left the restaurant, found my car, started the engine, and just drove. I had no destination in mind. The pain in my head was like a raging storm, spreading from the back of my skull to every part of it. I lost all sense of time and place. When I woke up in my car the next morning, I was in a place I didn't recognize. I got out, stretched, and yawned, trying to piece together the previous night as if it were some bad dream. I urgently needed to use the bathroom and get a strong coffee. I relieved myself in the bushes nearby and then drove off in search of a coffee shop that I found a small diner, grabbed some coffee and breakfast, and started brainstorming how to handle this mess. I couldn't just let Emily go off and sleep with other men. No way, that would end our marriage for sure. Her announcement made me question if she was even the person I thought she was. Maybe she had a breakdown or was caught up in some fantasy disconnected from reality. I wasn't a psychiatrist, just a bewildered husband that I checked my cell phone and saw I'd turned it off last night. It was flooded with texts and missed calls from Emily, asking where I was, if I was okay, and when I'd be coming home. At that moment, I wasn't sure I wanted to go home at all. But I knew I had to return eventually. I didn't reply to her messages or calls. After several cups of coffee and a plate of eggs and bacon, I came up with a rough plan. It was time to head back home. When I pulled into our driveway, Emily was waiting at the front door. "Where have you been all night?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. I was so worried. I thought something terrible might have happened. She tried to kiss me, but I pulled away and said, "Emily, I'm going to shower and clean up. Then we need to talk, really talk, about your plan to explore yourself that you mentioned last night." I pushed past her and went up to our bedroom, changing out of the suit I'd been wearing all night. I took a long, hot shower, trying to clear my head and prepare what I needed to say. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I had to find out if I still had a wife or if this was her way of saying goodbye. Maybe this was some kind of test to gauge my commitment. I had no clue what was going on in her head. I thought I loved her. I married her. She claimed to love me too. We had a big wedding and celebrated with a European trip. I'd never cheated on her or thought about other women. But clearly, she wasn't holding up her end of the deal. Thankfully, we didn't have any children yet. Whether we ever would depended on what happened in the coming days and weeks. After changing into clean clothes, I made another cup of coffee and grabbed a notepad and pen. Emily was in the kitchen, watching me closely as I tried to maintain a calm exterior despite being a mess inside. That I sat down with my coffee and asked, "Okay, Emily, tell me again why you want to have relationships outside our marriage." "I need to feel validated as a woman," she said. "I don't feel like my needs are being met right now. I need to figure out what those needs are and see if I can fulfill them on my own." "So, you don't know what your needs are and you need to find out?" I asked. "Are you planning to leave me for a while to do this?" "No, I'm not leaving you," she replied. "I'll stay here in our home, but I need to have the freedom to create my own schedule and do things on my terms." "When do you want to start this exploration and new schedule, Emily?" I asked. "Well, I guess any time would work," she said. "Do you agree to let me do this?" "No, I don't agree with any of this nonsense," I said firmly. "When we got married, we promised to be partners and lovers for life. Now you want to go find other lovers. What am I supposed to think?" "I'm starting to believe you want out of this marriage." "It's not like that," she insisted. "I need to find a connection we haven't had for years. Everything feels like work now. We don't have fun like we used to, and I don't feel appreciated the way I did when we first got married." "Appreciated?" I shot back. "Everything I do is for you. I've been busting my butt to make sure we can afford a family and all the things we dreamed about when we got married. This house is nearly paid off, for crying out loud." I could feel my anger bubbling up, and I knew I had to reel it in before I completely lost it. Blowing my top wouldn't help anything. "Are you planning to sleep with other men?" I asked, deciding to tackle the elephant in the room right away. There was no point in dancing around it. Honey, I'm not sure yet what I'll do. I might want to, if it feels right with the right person, so she was already thinking about cheating on me. So, you're planning to cheat, huh? It's not cheating if you know about it, Jake. It's not cheating if you're aware of it. My blood pressure was shooting through the roof. I had to take a deep breath, letting it out slowly to keep myself from exploding. I see, I said, pausing to take a long swig of my coffee, wishing it was something much stronger. I needed to keep a lid on my emotions and get through this conversation. So let me get this straight, Emily. You're planning to meet other men, go out with them, and probably sleep with them while still living here with me. Do I have that right, honey? It's not that simple. Seems pretty simple to me, Emily. Are you expecting us to still do things together during all this? You're still my wife, after all. Or are we just putting our marriage on pause for a while? Do you really think we'll still be having sex while you're off doing whatever this is? Of course, Jake. We're a family, you and me. I love you and I want us to stay a family. This will just be something I do occasionally to figure out what I need for myself. And how often are you planning to do this, Emily? Every weekend? Twice a week? Every night? Just how much exploring are you planning on? I don't know yet, honey. Why are you so worried about that? Well, I need to figure out what I'm supposed to do while you're off meeting, dating, and sleeping with your new boyfriends. I don't have a boyfriend, honey, at least not yet. I took another deep breath, slowly letting it out. I was about to lose it, and it took everything I had not to break something right then and there. Emily, I need to get a few things straight in my head before we go any further. Have you really made up your mind that this is what you want? Have you thought about what this will do to our marriage? She nodded but didn't actually say anything, which told me she hadn't given much thought to how I might feel about all this. She probably hadn't even considered that I might have a say in what she was planning to do. And then she dropped the bomb. If you love me, you'll let me do this. If you love me, Emily, you won't do this. That was my line in the sand, plain and simple. Honey, I've made up my mind. This is what I'm going to do. You can't talk me out of it. And there it was, the ultimatum that would change everything. From that moment on, our marriage would never be the same. She hadn't thought far enough ahead to realize that being unfaithful, even if you announce it beforehand, is still a marriage killer. Now I had to start putting my own plan into place. Okay, here are my conditions. They're not up for discussion. If you want to screw around on me, you'll move out. I'm not living under the same roof while you're dating and sleeping with other men. And if you think you're bringing them here, think again. That's not happening, honey. Where am I supposed to live? I don't know. Maybe you can stay with that friend of yours, Melissa, from school, the one you've been so chummy with lately. You said she's divorced and living alone, right? Call her and ask if you can crash at her place for a while. If that doesn't work, you can find a short-term rental somewhere. But you'll be responsible for your own expenses, utilities, car payment, everything. Emily was a third-grade teacher at the local elementary school, making a decent income. I was working as a forensic auditor for a big firm, bringing in good money along with yearly bonuses. From what she was saying, it seemed like I wasn't giving her everything she needed in our relationship. Emily's head shot up, and for the first time, she looked me straight in the eye. She probably thought I was caving, that she'd won. I continued, so, if you want an open marriage, I guess I'll have to be patient while you have your flings. But tell me, Emily, are you planning on coming back to me after all this? Honey, of course I am. I love you. You're my husband. I want us to have a family, and what am I supposed to do while you're out screwing other men? Do you expect me to be faithful to you? Should I just sit at home waiting for you to finish up with your boyfriends, then welcome you back with open arms? Is that what you think is going to happen, Emily? Have you even considered, for 1 second, what this is going to do to me? I want you as my husband, honey, and only you. Whatever I do while I'm away won't mean anything once I come home to you. I want you to be the father of my children. I thought to myself, that's a pretty twisted way to show it that she'd already accepted the reality that I wasn't going to just sit back and let her bring her boyfriends into our house, having sex right under my nose. I suppose she thought that was a victory for her, getting to go out and party with other men without me getting in the way. All right, figure out where you're going to stay and let me know by the end of the week, I told her. But first, we need to start making some changes here. I want you to move your clothes and things into the spare bedroom. I can't share a bed with you right now. What you're planning is too hurtful. It feels like you're already leaving me, but you haven't had the decency to say it outright. So, you tell me what I'm supposed to think. Emily didn't say a word, and I figured she was starting to realize I wasn't going to roll over and take this. Maybe she was shocked that I wanted her out of our bed, but seriously, what did she expect? Did she really think I was some kind of naive fool who'd let her run around, sleeping with other men, then come home and pretend everything was normal? That we'd just carry on as a happy couple, have kids, and live a normal life? No chance. Emily was close with another teacher, Melissa, and I had a hunch that some of this nonsense was coming from her. Melissa, who taught 4th grade at the same school, had been kicked out by her husband 2 years ago after he caught her cheating with multiple lovers. She's 35, good-looking with a great body, but her downfall is she'll spread her legs for any man who gives her a smile. I couldn't shake the feeling that Melissa was the one pushing Emily to explore herself before we started a family. But if Emily explored too much, there wouldn't be any family, at least not with me. The only thing there'd be was a divorce. That I got up from the table and started to walk away. Is that it, Jake? You want me to move out? She asked. Yeah, that's it for now. But don't get me wrong, Emily, I don't want you to do this at all. We made a promise of monogamy to each other when we got married, and you're planning to break that promise. So, what exactly do you expect me to do? Sit quietly while you have sex with other men? If you want an open marriage, then I suppose I get the same freedom. Emily was speechless. I left before things escalated into a shouting match. I grabbed my car keys and started to leave the house. Honey, where are you going? I'm not sure right now, but don't forget to move your things to the spare room and start looking for that place to stay. Remember, you don't get to mess around on me in our marriage until you've moved out. I turned and left, slamming the door harder than I normally would. If push came to shove, I was prepared to be the one to leave, but since she was the one initiating this messed up situation, she could be the one to deal with the inconvenience. Besides, I figured it was that slut Melissa who was egging Emily on, so she could be the one to take her in. I had to resist the urge to drive over to Melissa's apartment and punch the bitch in the nose. Monday morning, I was up and out of the house before Emily even got up. I had a lot of work to do on my plan if Emily's intentions played out the way she seemed to want. There was no way I was going to tolerate her cheating on me. Since it looked like she'd already made up her mind to end our marriage, I had to get to work. The fact that she thought she could sleep around and I'd just sit back, let her do it, and then pretend everything was fine when she came home, it hurt like hell. And what if she came home with some disease? Or pregnant, or both? No way, not happening. Step 1 was a call to my lawyer. He was a friend who handled the more routine stuff, real estate, wills, that kind of thing. I didn't expect him to take on a divorce case, but I figured he could refer me to someone who would. He did. He connected me with a good divorce attorney at his firm, and I had a meeting with her scheduled for that afternoon. It was a tough meeting, but my new lawyer was sharp, a skilled litigator who knew the ins and outs of our state's laws. I didn't want to make this divorce messy. In fact, I was fine with a 50-50 split of our assets. We didn't have much when we got married, and we'd both worked full-time to build a comfortable life with plans for a family. But now, those plans were shot. So, I was okay with splitting everything down the middle. I'm not a completely heartless prick. Besides, fighting over assets would only drag out the divorce. Nothing was worth having to stare at a cheating wife. The paperwork would be drawn up and held until I had proof she was actually screwing other men. Until then, this was just a preliminary move. The week crawled by. I made a point of spending as little time at home as possible, heading out every evening, mostly to the gym to burn off stress. I noticed Emily was spending more and more time with Melissa, and on Thursday, she announced she'd be staying with her for a couple of weeks until she could find a more permanent place. I knew it would be a convenient spot for her to mess around with her new boyfriends without worrying about me interrupting. Jesus, this was messed up. On Saturday, exactly 5 years and 1 week into our marriage, my wife confirmed her decision to sleep with other men by packing up her things and leaving. Just before she drove off, she hesitated. "Honey, I don't want to go. Are you sure we can't figure something out so I can stay? I love you so much, and I really want our marriage to be better, my God." Emily, if you loved me and wanted our marriage to improve, you wouldn't be going through with this. Yes, I want you to stay here with me, but I won't stand by and let you sleep with other men while you're still my wife. I love you, but I'm not going to tolerate that. Please, come with me to marriage counseling so we can try to work out whatever's wrong. But if you won't do that, I don't know what else to say. So, go. As she loaded the last of her things into her car, I got into mine and headed to the hardware store to buy new locks for the house. I replaced 3 locks and changed the security code on the garage door opener. Saturday night and all of Sunday, I sat at home, staring at the 4 walls, hoping Emily would come to her senses and come back. The following week was brutally hard. I hit the gym every day and even took up running again to try and manage my stress. At times, I felt so depressed that I wanted to go to her, to beg her to come home. But intellectually, I was still struggling to wrap my head around the fact that my wife had left me so she could sleep with other men while staying married to me. It made me feel like a giant failure. Was I so worthless that she was willing to flaunt her infidelity right in my face? Apparently so. That I went online and started researching the psychology of cheating, trying to understand why spouses betray each other. I was shocked to learn that about 40% of all married people cheat on their spouse. Even more surprising was that nearly 90% of those marriages continue, with the cheating often quietly tolerated by the other spouse. It's often because there are kids involved, and it's easier for the other partner to accept the infidelity if it's kept discreet and to carry on as if nothing is happening. Many women who cheat say they still love their husbands and families but seek excitement outside the marriage, excitement they're not getting at home. They talk about the daily grind of keeping a family going, how the endless responsibilities make sex and intimacy with their husbands dull. These women want to feel alive with a lover who focuses solely on them, without the distractions of kids or errands right after sex. Maybe the key to a successful marriage was to treat your wife like she was a cheating spouse, but without the divorce part. Just enjoy the sex. I even considered going to the club where Emily and Melissa would likely be hanging out, trying to pick up my own wife. People cheat for all sorts of reasons: lack of sex, no passion, no emotional connection, or even out of revenge. Some women claim they cheat to save their marriages. I'm not so sure about that one, but that's what they've told researchers. Marriage is complicated, and relationships take effort. Open marriages, where both spouses know they'll have other relationships and sexual partners, rarely last long. Emotional bonds form, feelings get hurt, and most end in divorce. Polyamorous marriages are equally fraught, especially if there are kids involved. There's always the risk of STDs entering the relationship, which is a constant threat. Personally, I believed monogamy was the best foundation for marriage. If both partners didn't agree on that, they shouldn't be married. They should find someone else who shares their values. Did I neglect my wife and drive her away? Did I fail to give her the attention she needed while I was busy building a life for us? Was I wrong? I don't know. What I do know is that I was devastated that my wife had left our home to seek out other men. She was looking for something she claimed I wasn't providing, but I didn't see how her plan would improve our marriage. Another week dragged by. I didn't call Emily once, and she only texted me once to ask that I forward her mail. She had nothing to say that hinted at wanting to save our marriage. It was all business. Clearly, she was moving forward with her plan to find a boyfriend, or maybe more than one, to have fun with. I thought about following her from the apartment to wherever she and Melissa were going, just to see who she was meeting. I drove by the apartment a few times but never stopped, deciding I couldn't do that to myself. I had to let her make her own choices, otherwise, she'd never be my wife again. The longer this went on, the less chance there was of her ever coming back to me. And the more time passed, the less I wanted her back. A month went by with almost no communication between us. Then, out of the blue, Emily showed up at the house unannounced. When Emily's key didn't work, she rang the doorbell and knocked. I went to answer it. "Emily, what brings you here today, honey? My key doesn't seem to work in the lock." "What's going on with that?" "That's because I changed all the locks," I replied, my face expressionless. Emily started to step inside, but I blocked her path. "What do you want, Emily?" "I came to pick up a few things I forgot when I moved in with Jess." Once again, it wasn't about seeing me, it was about her stuff, all business. She didn't really care about me or the damage she was causing. My pain didn't even cross her mind, I was just an obstacle in her way. Was she really that foolish or delusional to think I wouldn't care about her sleeping with other men and eventually just take her back? "There are some boxes in the garage with your things that I gathered up from around the house." "Why did you do that, honey?" "I'm coming home in a few months, so there's no need to pack all my things." I let her in the house. After all, it was still half hers. We walked into the garage, and she saw the dozen or so boxes I had ready for her. "How long are you planning to live with Melissa?" I asked. "She's been really great." "I'll stay with her for a while. I'm sure it'll only be a few more months, then I'll come back and be an even better wife to you, honey. Then we can make a baby or two and be a family." I rolled my eyes at that comment, grimacing internally. Yeah, right. I wasn't sure how sleeping with other men was supposed to make her a better wife or prepare her for motherhood, but somehow, in her twisted logic, probably fueled by that bitch Melissa, that's what she believed. Surely, she knew it was all bullshit. But I had my own thoughts about this whole mess. "So, have you found a boyfriend yet?" I asked. Emily blushed at my question, giving me the answer without words. "Jess and I have been out on some dates with guys from the club we go to, but that's all." "How's the sex with your new boyfriends?" Her face flushed even more as she busied herself rifling through the boxes, clearly uncomfortable with my question. I already knew the answer, so I left the garage and went back to the kitchen to have my coffee and read the newspaper. A few minutes later, she came out with a large bag of her things and glanced around the kitchen. She seemed to expect the place to be a mess with her gone, but it was just the opposite. I had hired a maid service to come in 3 times a week, so the house was spotless. She looked noticeably disappointed by the lack of chaos. No giant pile of dirty dishes, no empty beer bottles, no mountain of laundry. The house was doing just fine, and I was working hard to keep myself together so I didn't lose my mind over the fact that my wife had left me to sleep with other men. "Is there anything else you need, Emily?" I asked. That I could tell she wanted to know what was going on in the house without her. "So, honey, have you been okay since I've been staying with Jess?" "I'm fine. I've been busy with work. I'm on the road a lot." "Honey, are you getting out at all, or just staying home here by yourself?" And there it was, the question I knew would come sooner or later. What had I said before? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Time to drop a little bomb in her basket and see how she handles it. I've been trying to keep busy. I joined a cycling group that meets twice a week for organized rides. We start at a meeting point and ride as a group for 40 to 60 miles. It's a lot of fun, and I've met a lot of new people. They're a great bunch. We usually grab a beer and a burger afterward. Riding that far works up quite an appetite. Between the exercise and the stress she was causing me, I'd dropped 15 pounds in the last few weeks. Staying active was probably the only thing keeping me from a mental breakdown. I made a point to avoid too much alcohol. "It wouldn't help me at all." "That's nice," she said, but her tone hinted that she was more interested in what I was doing than she let on. My takeaway was that she was fishing to find out if I was meeting other women. I figured that as Emily drove away from the house, she started to realize that her plan wasn't going the way she thought. Maybe her loyal husband might just meet someone else and decide he didn't need to stay married to her. Maybe her plan to find a boyfriend who would give her the attention she thought I wasn't could have bigger consequences than she'd anticipated. That I later found out that Emily had been dating two guys from the club she and Melissa frequented and had slept with both of them a few times. But so far, neither was interested in her enough to spend any real quality time with her beyond a few hours in bed. Both of them were happy to leave Melissa's apartment right after they'd had their fun with her. Once they were done, they'd both tell her they had to go. Both were married and just looking for a good time. Emily was that good time. Pump and dump. At the 2-month mark, I knew my marriage was over, and it was time to move on to the next phase of my plan. Emily hadn't contacted me in weeks, so it was clear she wasn't thinking about me or our marriage at all. She was doing whatever she pleased, showing no interest or intention to come home. And even if she did, there'd be a whole list of conditions attached, and honestly, I wasn't sure I'd take her back even then, for good reason, too. I found out she and one of her boyfriends had taken a vacation to the Dominican Republic during the school break. They had a little getaway to the sun and sand to work on their tans, and other things. If that was her idea of making our marriage stronger through infidelity, well, she was seriously deluded. The crap that Melissa had been feeding Emily about what a terrible husband I was and how I'd ignored her had clearly taken root before she decided to abandon our marriage. Now, she was sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with her disgruntled, divorcee friend, and her reputation among the other teachers in her family was going downhill fast. When Emily's mother found out she'd gone off to the Caribbean with another man, she called me, asking why we had separated. She probably assumed we'd been fighting. When I told her that her daughter had left me to sleep with other men, she was stunned and didn't believe me. I told her to ask Emily herself and get the truth. Her mother called her. "Emily, why did you move out of your home? What's going on with you and Jake? Is he hurting you?" "No, Mom. He's not hurting me, but he doesn't give me the excitement I need from a man right now. Jake doesn't make me feel desirable. I need that feeling. I need to feel wanted. I don't feel attractive to him, so I need to get that from someone else right now. I want to have a bit of fun before Jake and I start a family. I need to do this now, then in a few months, I'll go back to him when he'll appreciate me more, and everything will be fine." You'll see. Emily's mother was floored. "Dear, if you have sex with other men, Jake isn't going to want you as his wife. Cheating on him is the fastest way to end your marriage. Don't you understand that? I know Jake loves me, Mom. He understands that I need to do this. I'll go back home in a few months, maybe a year at the most, and then we'll have babies." "Emily, dear, you need to wake up and go home now, or there won't be a marriage or a husband to go home to. And there certainly won't be any babies with him. Do you understand me, Mom? I know Jake loves me. I know what I'm doing." Even her mother couldn't talk sense into her. So, in that good for the goose, good for the gander way of thinking, I decided it was time to see if I was ready to start living my life again. It had been about 3 months since Emily left, and it was time to move on. I finally got up the courage to ask one of the women I cycled with out on a date. I just wanted some female companionship and a change from the monotonous routine I'd been enduring. Since my wife had moved out, my days had become a repetitive cycle of work, the gym, cycling, and sleep. Rinse and repeat, waiting for the nonsense to end. That was it. A part of me still wished Emily would come to her senses, stop this nonsense, and come home. But that wasn't happening. I had to face the facts. She wasn't coming back, at least not as the wife I had married or the woman I thought I knew. I guess she was enjoying her newfound freedom, finding the excitement and validation as a woman that was missing from our marriage, the very things psychologists say drive married women to cheat. So, I tried to approach getting a date without coming off as desperate or just hitting on someone randomly. I knew that might come across as weird. I wanted to get to know the people in my cycling group better and let them get to know me before inviting one of the women out. I didn't want it to be a pity date. My cycling friends pretty much knew I was separated, and I'm sure some even knew that Emily was actively dating other men. This wasn't a big city, and gossip spreads fast. When I finally asked a woman named Rachel out for a drink and a bite to eat, I was surprised when she accepted. I planned a Saturday night out at a nice, casual place with no pressure. Before dinner, I suggested we go kayaking on the lake near the city. I had done quite a bit of kayaking a few years ago, so I knew my way around. Rachel hadn't kayaked before, but I assured her it was a lot of fun, and she was excited to try it. So, it was a date. The kayaking turned out to be a great time. We paddled about 10 miles, taking around 3 hours, then headed to a nice restaurant for a good meal and a drink. I'm a beer guy, so I had a steak with some fries and a good local craft beer. Rachel enjoyed some white wine with her pasta dish. It was low-key, informal, and completely pressure-free. After dinner, we got ice cream from a stand on the waterfront boardwalk. I drove her home and told her I had a great time. I was going to give her a kiss on the cheek, but she surprised me by leaning in and planting a kiss on my lips. It was great and unexpected. Not wanting to seem too eager, I waited until our regular Tuesday cycle meetup to arrange another date. Rachel surprised me a bit by saying that when I didn't call her, she thought I hadn't enjoyed our time together. I was quick to assure her it was just the opposite, that I had an amazing time and truly enjoyed everything we did, especially spending time with her. We planned another date for Saturday, this time to hit the golf course. I'd read online that there's a delicate balance between too much and just enough texting and calling when trying to spark someone's interest. Men who are constantly texting and calling are often perceived as overly needy, and women tend to steer clear of that kind of behavior. So, I sent Rachel a text on Friday, letting her know I was excited about our golf game the next day and offering to pick her up if she was interested. I also gave her the option to meet me at the golf club if she preferred. She asked me to pick her up, so we scheduled for early afternoon. Our time on the golf course was fantastic. We weren't exactly pros, but we had a blast. Later, we had dinner at my place. We grilled some food and enjoyed a bottle of wine. When it got late, I was about to drive her home, but she surprised me by taking the keys from my hand, setting them on the kitchen counter, and asking to see the bedroom. The next morning, I woke up with Rachel, a stunning woman, draped over me. Rachel has long, dark, and luxurious hair, striking green eyes, and flawless skin. There's a small scar on her chin from a bicycle accident, but it adds a unique charm to her otherwise beautiful face. Standing around 5 feet 11 inches and slim, she probably weighs around 140 pounds and is in incredible shape. Rachel works as a pediatric nurse at the hospital, and everything about her radiates compassion. Her genuine nature and magnetic personality drew me to her from the moment we met. We had breakfast on my patio, and the conversation eventually turned to me and my plans, particularly whether I was considering a divorce. It was a sensitive topic because I could tell where it was heading. Rachel wanted to know my intentions before she would get emotionally involved. It made sense. Who would want to invest time in someone who might reconcile with their estranged spouse soon? When I explained the odd way Emily had left me, Rachel's reaction confirmed what I'd already suspected. Emily wasn't coming back. I think that realization was the nudge I needed to move forward with my plans. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer and asked her to assign an investigator to the case. I needed to know how many men Emily had been seeing before I served her the divorce papers. It turned out she was involved with a string of guys, many of them married, and they were partying at Melissa's apartment after hitting various bars and clubs around the city. 2 weeks later, Emily was served with the divorce petition. That's when things really started to get interesting. That night, she showed up at the house, clutching a large brown envelope and looking distressed. I answered the door, and she asked, "Why did you file for divorce?" "I told you I'd be home soon. I even mentioned coming home this week. We can start working on that baby we talked about." I invited her in and asked her to sit at the kitchen table. "It's a bit late for that, Emily. I told you I didn't want you to leave, but you did anyway," she tried to explain. I needed to find out who I was and feel good about myself. I couldn't help but laugh. "So, do you feel good about yourself now? Are you validated enough as a woman? Have you explored your sexuality to the fullest? Met exciting new people? Had enough fun with all those men? It sure looks like you've had your fill. I've had almost no contact from you since you left. You didn't even call me on my birthday because you were busy with one of your boyfriends in the Dominican Republic. Your mother called me, wondering why you didn't call her on Mother's Day. Jesus, have you spent the entire time on your back?" Emily responded. "Honey, I love you very much, and I see that I might have gone a bit too far, so I'm coming home today." I shot back, "Whoa. No, you're not." "Why not?" she asked, bewildered. "I'm still your wife, and this is still my house too. I'm going back to Melissa's place to get my things and will be home in a few hours." "Oh, no, you're not," I replied. "Did you read the documents in that envelope? At the end, there's a judge's order stating you can't come within 500 feet of this house until the divorce is finalized. Technically, you're already in violation of the court order. I'm not going to complain, but you need to leave. We'll handle the details in court." Emily started to grasp that I was serious about upholding our wedding vows: love, honor, cherish, and the part about not messing around with other men. I told her, "This house doesn't matter to me. If you want it, that's fine. It's nearly paid off, so my half is worth around $150,000. For that small sum, it's all yours. If you don't want to spend that kind of money, we'll sell it and split the proceeds. But right now, you're not moving back in while I'm here." I escorted her to the door, shut it behind her, and locked it. A month later, we avoided court and settled the divorce quietly. Emily got half of everything, which she was legally entitled to. The house was sold, I moved on, and Emily resumed her new routine. I heard from a friend at the charter school where she taught advised her to keep her social life low-key. Apparently, some parents knew about her numerous relationships and were unhappy with her teaching their children. The complaints mainly came from the mothers, and some fathers might have been her lovers. She was later diagnosed with an STD, not a deadly one, but one that meant no sex for about a year. This wasn't a huge issue since she was already pregnant, likely due to one of her lovers. She had gotten careless with birth control, indulged in too much alcohol, and didn't make her partners use condoms. The father was rumored to be a married teacher at her school. My divorce was finalized, and I was free of Emily. It's been about a year since all that mess began. I bought a new house, got a promotion at work, and most importantly, Rachel and I are now living together. We have two exciting announcements: we're getting married this summer, and we're expecting a baby around Christmas.